Hi, welcome to another midweek message. Alexander III of Macedon was only 20 years old when he inherited his father's kingdom. But by the age of 30, through a series of undefeated military conquests, Alexander the Great had expanded the Greek Empire to become one of the most powerful, influential kingdoms of the ancient world, stretching from the Mediterranean Sea in the west to the east and the northwest portions of India. But in June of the year 323 BC, Alexander the Great died of alcohol intoxication, or perhaps having been poisoned by one of his fellow revelers. Alexander the Great was only 32 years old, and he left behind the Greek Empire. Julius was one of the great Roman generals responsible for capturing neighboring kingdoms and empires, including the Greeks before them. And after his military conquest abroad, Julius returned to the city of Rome, and there, in cohorts with others, overthrew the Roman Republic and established himself as Julius Caesar, the first emperor of the Roman Empire. But on March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated by some of his political peers. He was only 55 years old, and the Roman Empire, for which he was responsible, was left to another after him. George Washington was a Virginia delegate to the Continental Congress. He was a general and the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army during the Revolutionary War. He was our country's first president, serving 2 terms, and likely would have been elected to another if he had been willing to serve. After all of his military and political success, he retired to his estate in Mount Vernon, Virginia. In December of 1799, he took respiratory illness, and 2 days later, after having been treated by the best doctors he could find with the practice of bloodletting, he died. George Washington was only 67 years old, and he left behind an estate that in today's dollars would be valued in excess of $15 million. Steve Jobs, who co-founded the company Apple Computers in 1976, is widely regarded as one of the most brilliant and innovative engineers and salesmen of the late 20th and 21st centuries. He's responsible for products that we know well, like iPods, iPhones, iPads, iMacs, and Mac laptops. We know these products well. But Steve Jobs died in 2011 from pancreatic cancer. He was only 56 years old, and he left behind a net worth estimated in excess of $10 billion. Men and women of history like these, and hundreds, if not thousands of others that could be added to the list, illustrate for us in very vivid detail the truth of which Jesus spoke in Luke chapter 12. Jesus said in Luke chapter 12 that even when one has an abundance, his life does not consist of his possessions. And so he related this parable of a rich man whose land was very productive, who began to reason about where he would store all of his produce. And so he decided that he would tear down the barns he had and build larger barns. And there he would store all of his crops, all of his goods. And he would then retire, take his ease, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, "You fool, this very night your soul is required of you, and now who will own what you have prepared?" Jesus said, "So is the man who stores up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God." It doesn't matter what power, influence, prestige, or wealth we may accumulate in this life. If we are not rich toward God, we are leaving everything behind. We won't be taking it with us. We won't be able to buy the welfare of our soul in the day of judgment. Jesus said a person who can only see this life and the accumulation of what this life has to offer is foolish indeed. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus asked this question: "What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul?" You see, in comparison to the value of your immortal spirit that will never die, and the eternity that it will spend somewhere, either in or out of the presence of God, the value of this life and all that it has to offer, well, it's absolutely nothing. This life is really about preparing for eternal life. And in the final judgment, when Jesus sits upon his throne and the sheep are divided from the goats, the righteous from the wicked, all that will matter is whether or not you have been rich toward God. Your political power, your economic success, the lands, houses, and toys that you've amassed, none of those will matter. One and only one thing will: your relationship with God. What are you doing to prepare for the day of judgment? Thanks for watching.